Hello, stroke warriors everywhere. This is Ralph Cortez with another episode of Stroke Warrior Radio Survivors. Um, this is where stroke survivors, TBI survivors, caregivers, and loved ones and providers come together to motivate, educate, and support one another through real conversations and shared experiences. I'm your host today, Ralph Cortez, and today we're honored, I should say, to welcome Eric Jackson, another warrior whose story reminds us that recovery is not just possible, it's personal, powerful, and ongoing. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing great, Ralph. Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about yourself before the injury. What people would have known about you maybe before everything changed.
Well, 13 years ago, before the stroke happened, I pretty much lived daily life like normal people do, I guess.
Yeah.
And, you know, worked, paid rent, um, had some fun with friends, and then of course, that day it did change everything.
Well, take us to that. Take us back to that day that everything happened. What symptoms were you having? Did you have any warning signs that you experienced? Did you even know you were having a stroke?
Well, I'm gonna go back to as far as the signs and symptoms. I had my stroke in March of 2013, but I want to go back to October 2012 because that's when I had a TIA. And
Oh,
what happened is I just went to the kitchen and all of a sudden, I forget which arm, but it just became numb. And just out of curiosity, I just tried to speak and you couldn't understand what was coming out of my mouth. But 45 seconds later, everything was back to normal. So what I did, and I found out that a lot of people do, is I totally ignored it
yeah.
and just went on, just went on what I was doing. And then March of 2013 is when I had the ischemic stroke.
Okay.
And did I realize what was happening? No. Uh, I was watching television, March Madness tournament, and went to the bathroom. And upon leaving the bathroom, I just started throwing up.
Oh,
And I really was confused, did not know what was going on. I thought it might have been food poisoning. Being I never had food poisoning before, so I really didn't know what was actually going on. The one thing that I did know is I felt weak, and I literally crawled back to my bed and just went to sleep. And then the next day is when the realization just hit me, something's wrong.
excuse me. I did the same thing. I took some ibuprofen. I thought I worked too hard that week. Took some
There you go.
ibuprofen and went to bed.
There you go.
So how obviously you weren't able to get that blood clotbuster drug because it was the night before. Um, so how quickly after that did you get into medical care?
Well, as far as it was delayed and
Oh no.
it was self-delayed, it was 100% on me. If I remember correctly, that was Thursday night. Friday, I think I was just trying to gather what was actually going on. And maybe I didn't think it was as serious as it was. So eventually, I did go to the ER. And one of the things that I can write a pamphlet on is what not to do. I drove I drove to the ER.
You
Now,
did.
I did, yes. And even though it's only 2 miles from me, I know that doesn't make any excuse. But yeah, I drove to the ER, and after being admitted, they did the test. Doctor said you had a stroke, and I really didn't have too much reaction to it because I didn't know. what a stroke actually was.
Okay.
And I was more tired than anything. And so that the visit that day was more or less not a fog, but IVs hooked to me, and I couldn't read the blood pressure monitor because it was just out of my sight. And I knew they told me they wanted that to go down until they did any further tests. So that was what not to do as far as delaying going to the ER. But live and learn. I'm glad I'm here now.
Yeah, exactly. I've had so many interviews. We talk about people that have driven themselves to the hospital. You wind up waiting in a waiting room, number one. Number two, they really don't know if, I've known a couple people that they thought they might be drunk. Or the nurses thought they might be drunk, so they sat in the waiting room. It's stuff like that. It's just so much better to call an ambulance, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes,
Uh,
100% agreed.
yeah, I mean, you're first in line, they take you right in. That's the only thing I keep preaching.
Yes.
Ha- So your that Friday was it mostly uncertainty, fear, confusion,
More
and
more on
what did it take to get out of it?
more uncertainty and confusion because I never felt that way before. And but the as far as getting the diagnosis definitely helped because at least I knew what to do going forward. And
Okay.
as I was in the ER, he was basically setting me up for physical therapy and also speech therapy. And I think I started that on Monday. And again, the speech therapy and the physical therapy was all within the same complex. So if I went to one, I could walk to the other for the most part.
So you just mentioned walking. What deficits did you have early on?
The
So was it side weakness or you know,
the stroke affected my right side,
okay.
no balance, no strength, and also affected my speech. And found out later on that I did have aphasia. So
Oh,
those were my two things to concentrate on was one, getting my balance back, and then speaking better.
one of the things they don't emphasize enough for stroke warriors or TBI early on is the emotional toll. What were
Yes.
those first days or weeks in the hospital like emotionally?
Well, the basically again the unknown as far as will I get my strength back? Will I get my balance back? Um, this thing called aphasia, is it temporary? Can it be fixed? Can you work on it? All those things factored in basically the first week, let's say.
Okay.
And after going through physical therapy, which was definitely an eye opener because it realized how bad my balance was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And going through speech therapy, the results were a little better. She actually, after I think two or three sessions, she actually said that I was okay and I didn't need any more sessions. And I went to her, I said, let's do one more session because
Okay.
I know I know I'm not cured. I could speak well after, say a week post stroke, but I can definitely speak better. So any information that I could get from her as far as being a sponge, it will definitely help me when I didn't have speech therapy.
How were you in intensive care or were you inpatient rehab? How long were you in the hospital?
It was inpatient. It was, say, 36 hours.
Oh,
And the one thing that they wanted was to have my blood pressure, I guess, normal,
Okay.
which is it's a tricky skill because I've always had high blood pressure, so didn't know what normal actually was as far as, a reading. But I never lost any like cognitive functions. I never lost any type of, learning or reading or so I felt like I got the step ahead of the class as far as my speech. And
Okay.
that was mostly on my own after therapy ended. And basically, the balance was the big thing because I definitely wasn't used to. You take walking just for granted. And
Yeah.
I was just walking, not a straight line, and definitely with a limp. And I still do a little bit. But that was the eye opener as far as how long we'll both last.
Yeah. Yeah. Did they get you on a walker or cane or anything?
What happened with physical therapy after the second session, I believe, she suggested to get a cane, and I had no problem with that whatsoever. Did get a cane, went to CVS, got the cane, and used it for maybe a day or two,
Oh, wow.
just because I'm not that smart, Ralph. As far as walking, you got to put the cane up first and then take a step and repeat. And I said, you know what? I'd rather just limp and maybe do it the hard way.
Yeah.
But I still do have the cane. I'm looking at it right now. It's in the corner right near my door. Just a reminder of where I was and where I am now.
Yeah. We've talked a couple times and I, I admire your positivity. But I know a lot of survivors say the emotional recovery can be harder than the physical. Was that true for you?
Uh, it was physical harder for me because that's what I really had to concentrate on. And it's as far as the emotional, it ties into the physical just because, again, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
And you just had to pretty much embed that in your head that it will not be, it's not a paper cut. Put some ointment on it and slap a band-aid on it, and you're good 2 days later. You
Yeah.
knew it was going to be longer than that. And
Yeah.
that's the process and the mindset you had to get into as far as the whole rehab process.
Were you working at the time? Did you go back to work right away or?
No, I was not working at the time. Well, the summer or the spring before, I got laid off from my job and didn't go back to work for, I'm going to say another 4 years or so.
Oh,
And I just wanted, because I didn't feel comfortable,
yeah.
physically. And although I was in, say, customer service positions before or positions that did a lot of talking, again, I might have to pivot a little because that was not going to be my number one thing to do as far as
Yeah.
talking. And I started to work part-time about 4 or 5 years later after just rehabbing and I felt pretty good. I remember talking to my cardiologist. He said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel fine." And I said, "I'd like to go back to work." And he just made me this promise. He said, "Just go to work part-time because I don't want you to deal with a whole full day with what you've been through." And so
Right.
that's what I did. And definitely worked out well just because,
Good.
the half of the day I'll get a little tired and didn't want to jeopardize myself at a job with that
Well,
state.
and with the blood pressure, you don't need the stress, that kind of thing.
Yes. Yes.
How's your blood pressure doing?
Blood pressure is great. I saw my cardiologist last Tuesday, I believe, and we were at I think it was 120 over 75, and that's great for me.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
that's great for me because I remember when I got admitted in the hospital, it was something, like 200 over 120,
Yeah.
and it took a lot. It took a lot of time, the right medication, and then of course change my diet to get that down. And it's
Yeah.
been down for several years, and it's something that I don't have to worry about unless I mess up.
How important was support from family, friends, caregivers, or the survivor community to your recovery?
I think my landlord was the first person to see me after the stroke.
Right.
And I just played it off like, nothing happened. I've had a bad voice day and just try not to move as much so he couldn't see my balance, the way it was. And my uncle and aunt who lived 2 miles down the road, I think they were in Ohio visiting family, so I knew I had a couple days to work with before I had to reveal that to them. And other than that, other than medical appointments, not too many people saw me in that state, so it was basically a phone call here, a phone call there, just to let them know I had a stroke, and I mean maybe two, three people at the most. And they knew me as, kind of introverted. And basically, if I needed help, I know it's a phone call away.
Right.
And and of course they respected that, and they know, I guess, from my upgrading and me being my dad's son that I don't like to be coddled and all that stuff. Hey, if you want to put stubborn, go right ahead.
Yeah.
But that support system was always there with friends and family, and then of course all the medical professionals were great.
I'm curious, and forgive me if I'm reading too much into it, or and if I don't want to offend you either, but you're saying about not talking in front of people, those kind of things. It sounds to me you were going through some confidence issues.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah. Tell me
definitely.
about that and how you get through that, because a lot of us do that. I wouldn't go grocery shopping. I thank God for COVID and the shut-in because delivery service, you know, I
And and
hated
self
to go to the grocery store. I
and
was
self
so
checkout, you
embarrassed.
hope self checkout, you
Yeah.
hope nothing else wrong. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely confidence issues as far as your voice. You're talking normal for all these years, and then bam, you're not. So
Yeah.
as far as talking, I would talk if I had to. And there, I guess the realization was they would know that something's wrong with my voice.
Okay.
And it was basically on me to be comfortable with myself. And that took a while. It
Yeah.
took a while. Don't know the timeline, but it definitely took a while. And,
Yeah.
just wean into that as far as talking to anybody and everybody. And then just out of time and effort, the voice got better and you got more
Yeah.
confidence.
Yeah. I think a lot of us weren't told how much consistency and repetitiveness in our therapies or exercises or just practicing we really
Yes.
needed to do to get to the point where we
Yes.
were over it.
Totally agree.
Today, what is what do you think? I know a lot of people suffer an identity theft of their after a stroke, um, identity loss, I should say. What does your life look like now, today, compared to before this stroke?
I would say my outlook is it's more clear just because my priorities have, I guess, wavered a little bit. It's all about my mental health and my peace.
Yeah,
Everything else is under there. So when I wake up, I'm just glad that I can wake up, and I do not let anything stress me. And I contribute that to my mom and dad because I never saw them stressed. So I got to adopt that and
yeah,
just do what I like to do, be happy and be healthy. And that's
yeah,
my outlook now. And I think before it wasn't that clear. It was, got to make more money, got to do this, got to do that, got to have the girlfriend, this and that. Now
yeah,
it's all about peace, peace
yeah,
and mental acuity. That's
yeah.
all that matters to me now.
What do you think some of the biggest lifestyle adjustments you had to make were?
Well, first was changing my diet
Okay,
for I remember that first day I was afraid to eat because I thought that anything would trigger something.
right.
So I would, you know, I'd eat like a slice of bread with peanut butter. I would drink, I would drink water, and then hopefully that was enough to not trigger something. And then eventually, you know, cut the fried food off, hamburger, turned to ground turkey burger, more vegetables, no soda, no sweets. And so, yeah, definitely an adjustment as far as your eating lifestyle. And that took a while also. It's hard to stop eating what you like out of the blue.
Yeah.
And but the long term, that's the big thing that I had to adjust to, along with getting my balance, my strength, and my speech back. Everything rolled up into run.
Let's dig a little bit. What what have you learned about yourself because of the stroke?
I think that I am stronger than I thought I was before because nothing ever challenged me like this.
Yeah,
So when you say you're rehabbing, whatever you're rehabbing, and your goal is maybe to get to a certain place on a Friday, and you might not hit that until the next Friday or maybe the next month. So your rehab timeline will change 100 times, and you have to be patient. I thought I've always been patient. I have to step up my patience. So
yeah,
you roll that into one, and you go to yourself, I'm definitely stronger than what I used to be, and it definitely helps. And I'm more patient, and you need all of this for I'll say a successful rehab.
What what do you think, or what are you most proud of as far as the small victories that became major milestones?
Definitely that in 13 years, first I can talk about it
Yeah,
because the experience it's a great experience. And I remember when I would walk with a cane. I remember when I couldn't speak well at all. And cliche, but day by day, it got better. And you have to, again, embed in your mind that you have to be more patient than you've ever been. And you have to be that every single day.
yeah,
And 13 years later, I'm proud that I can pretty much do everything I could before. I'm in better shape, best shape of my life. And I remembered a quick story. I live next to a park. It's called Central Park, but it's not that Central Park.
yeah, right.
but it's a hill to get to the park, and it might have taken me about 3 years to conquer that hill. It's about maybe it's less than a quarter of a mile,
Okay.
and it gets steeper as you keep going up. So I would try it one day and maybe get there about 2/3 so that I can't do the rest, turn back around, go back home. Kept at it. And one day I remember getting to the top of the hill and it felt like I ran a marathon, Ralph. I was sweating and I was tired, but you know what? I did it. And that
Yeah.
that that took maybe 3 years or so as far as to conquer going up. And the
Yeah.
same thing about going down, which is a little bit scarier because you pick up
Hmm.
that momentum that you can't really control like you could
Yeah.
before.
Especially with the balance.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, as far as stairs, took me about maybe 4 years to conquer stairs, to not hold on to the railing. And I still do that today.
Yeah.
And depending on what the actual, I guess, stair or steepness is. But again, that took a while also. So I'm definitely proud of that as well. And so a lot of little accomplishments that I did make is everything to be proud of. It's so much to be proud of. And again, going outside and trying to be normal like everybody else, I can feel that now. Maybe not 13 years ago, but I do now.
Yeah. It's our tagline. Catch the wave.
Yes.
That's warriors achieving victories every day.
Yes.
It took me 4 or 5 years before I realized, you know what I did yesterday and what I did today is way different. It's
Yes.
better today.
Yes.
So that's a victory. And I, like you said, first thing getting out of bed in the morning, that's the first victory every day.
Yes.
What what do you think were the most prevalent habits, routines, technologies, therapies, whatever, that helped you recover the most?
Well,
And how
first
did you
the
find them? And how did
okay.
you find them?
Now, luckily, I'm about 2 miles from a rehabilitation hospital along with the main hospital. They're adjacent to each other.
Okay.
And so that's where everything started for me. And I'm trying to think, support groups were prevalent at that hospital at the time. And I remember going into the room and the lady looked up at me and she said, "Do you realize this is a stroke support group?" I said, "Yes." And then she said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm definitely sure." And then she said, "You're way too young to be in this group."
Yeah.
And now there were more elderly people in that group at the time, but as I found out, strokes, it doesn't care your age or ethnicity or
No.
whatever the case was. So it's like I had a stroke and I'm here to talk about it. And as far as finding everything, Google was my best friend. I would just research everything as far as stroke, and aphasia as well, as far as support groups, and eventually learn to go on different Zooms, different
Okay.
podcasts, different stroke and aphasia studies. So definitely the research is what helped me find everything. Even same support group, there was a father whose son had a stroke, and he told me about the gym at the rehabilitation hospital. I knew nothing about it. Joined the gym, got the scholarship. It was for free, and that's how eventually I got my strength back. Working out at the gym. And it was a little odd just because most of the exercises were maybe just right-sided. I maybe ignored my left side because the compensation sometimes was ridiculous, and I wanted to get my right side equal to my left side. And even now, my right side might be 85% of my non-affected side. And I'm fine with that. But that's how I gained the strength back. And then, as far as again, the Google search, just try to dive myself into everything. And
Yeah,
eventually that's how I found a lot of these stroke podcasts, along with studies uh, and certain organizations that do the Zooms as well.
okay. I I hear, and I'll throw this word out. I hear a lot of self-advocacy.
Yes.
It took me 5 years to learn self-advocacy because I had many anger issues about my stroke early on. So, um, what advice would you probably give to someone newly injured?
I would say first, definitely lean on what your medical professionals say. They they know more than us, but they will never know your body as well as you do.
Right.
And that's where you have to gain that knowledge. I spent maybe hours just reading about strokes. Didn't know how many different kinds of strokes there were, how many different rehabs that it can entail. You almost have to make your own rehab program catered to you because you do know how you're going to get better. And again, patience is such a big word, but you have to have that in you.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And again, you have to put in the effort. And all these things are difficult for starting out because you don't know what's going on and you're not going to be cheered in a week.
Yeah.
So again, day by day, you have to work on it. And you know what? If there's a day that you don't want to work at it, that's fine. I've done it.
Don't. Yeah.
And just pick it up the next day. But definitely put in the effort. And if you can be aware of this is the new you. Prior to your stroke is gone. This is the new you. And I use rehab all the time, but more I like to use a sort of like a reclamation project. This is what you have to work on. And again, it's for you. And I did that myself. Didn't write anything down. I knew what I had to do. And if I found a tip or something that I think might help it, I would add to it. And if it was good, fine. If not, throw it out. But it's a project, and again, patience, effort, and commitment. That's a lot of stuff, after you get out the hospital and, and start your rehab. But eventually, you'll get that in your head, and you're going to do fine.
And my circles of friends and stroke people I know, what we say is it's a choice. You can be a stroke survivor or choose to be a stroke warrior,
Yes, yes,
you know, and
I
that's a
agree.
daily choice. Sometimes you don't want to do it, but damn, you got to, you know. It's funny, you were talking about life before. I think I don't know if you'll agree or not, but one of the things after my stroke, it's like I'm a toddler, you know.
Yes,
I'm relearning to walk, talk, all this stuff. But I've also learned, I think, that I don't take things as much for granted. You
Yes.
know, it sounds like you did the same as I did.
Oh,
You went
yes.
through life and just lived life. That's it.
Yes.
You didn't live it. You just went through life, and
Correct.
that's what I did before too. You know,
Yes.
it was the most difficult thing I've ever done, but became the most rewarding, the stroke.
A
You
hundred
know,
percent agreed.
at what point did you have, and I get, what caused you to have your story out there to help others?
As far as myself, I think it was when, not to say I was going downhill of my rehab process, but I felt that I had enough knowledge to talk to people who have had a stroke that either they started rehab or their rehab has been a lot further along than I. I felt that I can jump in the conversation. I had something to give. And over the past, I'll say maybe 4 or 5 years, talking to people on Zoom, the different strokes that they've had, the different rehabs that they had for themselves. I said, you know what? I can contribute to that of what I did. And
Yeah.
that is the most enlightening part that you felt that you can be in the party, if you will. And
Okay. I like that.
that's it's fun. I mean, every Zoom, every podcast I've ever been on, after it ends, I feel great
Yeah.
and can't wait till the next one.
Yeah, I agree. What gives you hope today?
That's a good question. As far as hope, I think because I've done it, it can be done, and you don't have to. There is life after stroke. You don't have to. Again, it's a choice, like you said, Ralph. You can sit on a pot or get going.
Yeah, exactly.
And quick story: when I was rehabbing, there's a track, one of those old oval tracks at a community college near me
Yeah.
that I would walk around just to get my balance. And you know how you have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other?
Yep.
Now, what I thought was my mom and my dad. Now,
Ah,
my mom
oh
was
wow.
my mom was my biggest cheerleader. You know, I can do no wrong. It didn't matter what it was. She was always in my corner. So she's there on one shoulder. And then there's my dad, who very old school, very matter of the fact. Sometimes there is no gray. It's just black and white. He'll be the one that goes, well, you got to the track at 6 a.m. How come you weren't there at 4:30?
Ah,
So I had that
yep.
on my other shoulder. And and my dad's definitely the one that would go, why are you doing nothing right now? Do something. So I had both of them as a big motivation on my shoulders when I
Yeah.
rehabbed.
That's cool. I love the way people pick out these little things to inspire. It's amazing to me. What couple quick questions for you.
Yes.
Kind of reflections. What's one thing you wish people understood about stroke?
Well, for me, it came out of nowhere as far as the actual stroke. Now, I wasn't taking care of myself health wise. Didn't do much. I probably stopped working out and my blood pressure was high. And it's not that you were a definite candidate for a stroke, but I was that night. And is stroke preventable? Yes, somewhat. It's something I do now as far as take care of my health, eat right, get exercise. If you if you work that into your lifestyle, maybe you won't have a stroke, but maybe you will. It's something that you shouldn't think of. And again, everyday life before the stroke, life altering
Yeah.
change afterwards. And just take care of your health. That's the one thing I would always think is I wish I took better care of my health because
Yeah.
chances are it wouldn't have happened as opposed to what did happen.
One of the things reflecting on your story for me right now is looking back on your TIA. We need to educate and make people more aware that that's a hospital related need.
Yes.
Uh, Again, if you have something like that, I know so many people, a month before they had a TIA, had to pull their car over because they couldn't talk on the phone or speaker or whatever. And it went away. So a month later, they had a massive hemorrhagic stroke. There's, we got to do more for advocacy about educating people.
Yes.
Do you have any website or social media that people can relate to you?
For now, just my name on Facebook,
Okay.
and I forget my screen name on Instagram, so we wouldn't get into that. But
Yeah.
again, you can find me during just a name search, and
Just Eric Jackson.
just look at this face right here, and I'm sure you'll find it.
What are some of the best organizations or support groups that you've been involved in? Give me the top three, maybe.
Top three, I'll say first, NAA, which is National Aphasia Association. Um, MAC, which is the Mid-Atlantic Aphasia Conference, and of course, Americans Heart Association, which I did do some volunteer work for them and also did a few stroke walks. And as far as the resources that they have, they are great. They're great to start your Bible with.
Nice. Nice. Anything you want to add for today's talk, Eric?
Well, not really, other than as far as if you have a stroke, like I said, the recovery process is it's going to change 100 times. And
And sometimes in one day.
yeah, and just you just gotta keep up with it, and you'll definitely feel how strong you are, how resilient you are, and realize, what's in front of you. It's life changing, and you'll be so proud of yourself when you do what you've done since day one.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey with us today, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
To our
thank you very much,
listeners,
Ralph.
yeah, my pleasure. To our listeners, remember your story matters. Your recovery is worth fighting for, and you're never alone on this path. Every day may not be easy, but every step forward matters. And if today's episode touched you in some way, please share Stroke Warrior Radio with at least two people, whether that's a survivor, caregiver, loved one therapist, or medical provider. And you can learn more about more about us at strokewarriorradio.com and follow us everywhere on social media, Stroke Warrior Radio. I have one more challenge for you. If you have someone you know who has a story worth sharing, we'd love to hear from you. Um, and the last challenge is uh, Eric mentioned NAA, MAC, and the American Stroke Association. Please check out those websites and share with other survivors as you know. Until next time, keep fighting forward, y'all. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you very much, Ralph.